Hello, good morning. Good morning and welcome to our webinar. Thank you to all of you who are logging in. And on this very rainy, grey day here in central London, but you'll see from my backdrop, I'm hoping that we're all going to be moving to Portugal very shortly. So I'm trying to cheer you up with a beautiful sunny background. And welcome everybody. We're waiting for our participants to arrive. We have dozens streaming in right now, which is delightful to see. Thank you. Great to see you. And welcome to our webinar, How to Find a Property in Lisbon, Prices, Areas and Pitfalls. Now, many of you will know me already, but my name is Christina Hippisley, and I'm the General Manager of the Portuguese Chamber of Commerce here in the UK. And throughout the year, we run our Moving to Portugal events. Now, they're live and they're virtual, and we run them in the UK to help all of you find out more about how to move to Portugal. Right. So, as you probably know, or we may know, over 6,000 of you have already attended our live events so far, and our database is growing all the time. So we have learned a lot about what sort of questions you and everybody else we know want the answers to. Now, moving to Portugal. If you're thinking of moving to Portugal, lots of you ask us questions about pensions and tax, how to prepare your financial affairs before moving, the healthcare system, the Portuguese system, the visas, and how Brexit has changed the goalposts. And last but not least, properties, where you might want to buy your house, where the key areas are, and all the detail and taxes associated with that. Now, we have a library of webinars already on our movingtoportugal.org.uk website. See the logo on top of my head here. And on that website, you'll see the library of our webinars and have a look there. But we're also covering lots of the topics I just referred to in the coming weeks. Please stay tuned and we'll send you more details because you're obviously on our database already. Now, before I introduce our speaker, José Cabral, just some housekeeping. Now, we expect, we've built this webinar to last no longer than 30 minutes. So it's quick, it's succinct, it's supposed to give you some good ideas, and then you can talk to Zay later in more detail. So the plan of the webinar is 30 minutes, a short presentation and a Q&A session between myself and our guest, José Cabral, and then we'll take questions from the audience after that. Please put any questions you have in the chat box or in the questions box, and we'll come to them in about 25 minutes time. So now, Namrata, could you please put slide 1 up for us? I'd like to introduce our speaker, José Cabral, who is a chamber member, and he has worked at Porta da Frente Christie's, which is a very large real estate broker and agent in the Lisbon area. And he's now at Remax Collection, which is part of the SIM group. And José also runs his own property information website at josecabral.pt. Now, José is actually a specialist property finder for the Greater Lisbon area. He helps foreign buyers find and buy the property that suits their needs, so it's quite specific, and their budget in the Greater Lisbon area. So that helps buyers avoid the pitfalls that otherwise you might find when buying abroad in a strange system. Bit of background about José. He used to work for TAP Airlines, also for one of Portugal's biggest banks, but he then moved into social media in a big way. He was one of the first and most influential bloggers in Portugal. He had a fashion blog and he won a big award for his fashion blog. He is also a regular journalist and columnist in the Portuguese newspaper Expresso, which is the equivalent to the Sunday Times here in the UK. And he also writes regularly about real estate in Dinheiro Vivo, which is Portugal's #1 business newspaper. Now, Zay launched his real estate blog, A House in Lisbon, in the last few years. And more recently, he's launched his weekly program for social media called 1 Minute Real Estate on his social media account. So you can see he's a great one for statistics and for facts and for information. So now, José, welcome to the webinar. Thank you for being a chamber member and for joining us today on one of our Chamber Meets webinars. Before we talk in detail about the Lisbon market and look at some figures, why don't you tell us a little bit about what your job entails and how you can help clients find their ideal property in the Lisbon area?
Hi, Christina. Thank you so much for having me at this delightful chamber event, and thanks for the introduction. I also want to address those who decided to invest 30 minutes of their precious time to be here with Christina and me. I'll make sure by the end of this webinar, you'll have more information about Lisbon and its property market. It will be a superficial approach, but feel free to get in touch later. And don't worry, because the chamber will make the presentation available. Isn't that correct, Christina?
Yes, that's right. Straight after this webinar, we will have everybody in the webinar who's attending the webinar will get an email with the link to the website, the movingtoportugal.org website, where you can find this presentation and the stats that José is going to present.
Right, lovely, thanks. So the motive why I started working in the sector was everything but romantic. I had a business venture that didn't go the way I expected, and I just thought real estate was and still is prospering in Portugal, namely in Lisbon. So it just made sense to join a sector that had a good potential for income generation. So what really I feel that it's more important, and ultimately the reason why I'm here today, I guess, is that this position ended up being probably the most meaningful job I've ever had. And I guess that happened because I realized that housing is such a key theme on our lives, and it's so intimately connected with economy, sociology, politics, social dynamics, and our perception of quality of life and well-being. And consequently, are some words that are more difficult to me. I realized that my job and the way I perform it makes an impact on people's lives. And to accomplish that, I felt I needed to make sure one simple thing. I had to be the most informed and up-to-date person in the room when the subject was real estate. And I think this idea is probably what, the one that best describes my approach. Because ultimately, my job is to provide relevant data. So those who trust me in my work can be informed, can have more informed decisions about the topics that really matter to them.
Okay. Well, so I can see that you're determined to provide your buyers and the people that retain you to find properties with the right data, and you have a passion for your work. I know you're going to show us a few slides now about some statistics for Lisbon and the Greater Lisbon area. So Namrata, can we go to the first slide, please? So Zay, tell us a little bit about this first slide.
So first, Christina, I have to say I'm very happy to acknowledge that so many British people have shown interest in moving to Lisbon or making Lisbon region their second home. But, I'm not that surprised, because 1 year ago, you were the one that caught my attention with the following fact. In 2019, the British were already the third largest foreign community in Portugal. So I got so curious about this, I started looking at the reports of the Immigration and Border Service. And this is what I want to share. So between 2015 and 2019, the number of British residents in Portugal doubled, but I mean literally. There were 17,000 British living in Portugal in 2015, but you were already more than 34,000 in 2019. And the story doesn't end here. The data from last year was just released last week. So during 2020, the year of pandemic, but also Brexit, the number of British people living in Portugal rose by more than 35%. So long story short, you are now the second largest foreign community in Portugal. And this figure concerns strictly to the number of British people that have their official primary residence in Portugal. It does not include the universe of British that have a property in Portugal, but regardless of the time they spend here, they still have their main residence in the UK or in any other country. So I would say that for two countries that have the oldest diplomatic alliance ever, as you know, the Treaty of Windsor was signed, it's from the 14th century. It seems that we're living a very engaged moment of our common history.
Well, so that's certainly true. I mean, let's face it, over 2 million British people go to Portugal on holiday every year, well, in normal times, and lots of British have second homes in Portugal. We calculate approximately 60,000 homes in Portugal are owned by Brits who may or may not be permanent residents there. Of course, there are the tax benefits of Portugal, lots of other reasons why people choose to relocate to Portugal. We cover those in our other webinars. So, José, tell us about the next slide. Namrata, perhaps you could put slide 3 up, please.
Well, thank you, Christina. As you can see, the map of the metropolitan area of Lisbon is located in south central Portugal, and it's composed of 18 municipalities divided by the 2 banks of the River Tagus. Just to make sure that is clear, the white portion of space that separates both blue parts is the River Tagus. So, according to Idealista, the largest Portuguese real estate portal, the British demand for residential properties stand out of the rest of the foreign demand in 3 different geographies. This is Madeira Island, 3 parishes in the Algarve, one is Almancil, you might know, and the Lisbon metropolitan area. And well, there are no proper stats to support what I'm going to say now, which is it's the opposite what I usually try to do to provide proper data. Sorry for that. But in practice, I can see that most of British buyers' interest in Lisbon region choose Lisbon, Oeiras, Cascais, and Sintra. Some might pick the south bank of the River Tagus or Mafra, north of Sintra. There's a very popular town named Ericeira, I'm sure you know, but most will probably elect Lisbon, Oeiras, Sintra, and Cascais. Would you agree on that, Christina?
Yes, so just to clarify, what you're saying is, compared to the other foreign nationalities buying property in Portugal, the Brits buy proportionately more in those 3 areas that you mentioned. Madeira, exactly. 3 parishes in the Algarve surrounding Almancil, which most of the Brits know is the Golden Triangle, which is Vilamora, Quinta de Lago, Valdelobo, Almancil, and the small towns around Almancil. And then the other area where the Brits buy disproportionately more property, i.e. more property than other foreigners, is the Lisbon metropolitan area, the greater area,
exactly.
particularly on the north coast. So the Lisbon area, Cascais, Sintra, and that area. Well, I would agree with that because I lived in Portugal for 10 years. I had my office in central Lisbon, but I used to live in Cascais, which is along the Linha, as most people watching here will probably know. And very beautiful. Well, it was still almost a fishing town, but now it's much bigger. And Lisbon, but particularly Cascais, Sintra, and the area along the river towards the sea is very, very popular with the Brits. So talk a little bit more, Zé, about Oeiras and Cascais.
So Oeiras and Cascais are literally, as you can see in the map, the western extensions of Lisbon riverside. So somewhere in Oeiras, the River Tagus becomes the Atlantic Ocean, and these 2 counties are definitely our urban Riviera. So living in Cascais and Oeiras usually provides a perception of, you know, that spring lasts for 9 months. I'm aware this might not sound a very accurate thing to say, but I'm totally comfortable with this statement. So Cascais and Estoril, for the record, Estoril is part of Cascais County or municipality, have more history. But Oeiras is literally neighboring Lisbon. So for many people, it became the perfect balance between sea and city center. Sintra is located north of Oeiras and Cascais. So the mountain range, our Serra de Sintra, as we say, has an impact on the temperatures, which make that county a little bit fresher. But there's green everywhere. The beaches are wild and beautiful. And most people consider village of Sintra and its surroundings one of the most special places they've ever visited. And for the record, I think if Lord Byron was alive, he would totally agree with this perception. But what Oeiras, Cascais, and Sintra all have in common, besides the proximity to nature, is the good supply of international schools, a very good road and train connections to Lisbon city center.
Well, Zé, you've sold me, but you don't need to. The whole Lisbon area is wonderful. José, tell us a little bit about the next slide, slide 4, Portuguese housing market and how the prices have increased.
Okay. So, well, Christina, this slide shows us the evolution on residential property price per square meter in Portugal Lisbon metropolitan area, and Lisbon city center in the last 3 years. As you can see, prices in Lisbon city center stand out from the rest of the country, which happens, capital being more expensive almost everywhere else in the world. But first, let me give you a short introduction on the Portuguese property market momentum and to all our attendees. So after surprising the crisis, you should know Portugal's bailout came finally to an end in 2014. The number of residential properties sold in Portugal and its price rose significantly. So on one hand, the banks were financing the economy again, and eventually interest rates reached historical lows, meaning Portuguese started buying again properties. On the other hand, Portugal became first a tourist destination of choice, second, a place where people wanted to live, and third, both the Golden Visa program and the non-habitual resident status helped it a lot to marketing Portugal as a safe and attractive country to invest. And the outcome of this was that I would say that the Visit Portugal slogan start to give place to moving to Portugal, your chamber brand, and living in Portugal, and the housing market has been growing consistently, both in number and value of transactions. And what happened in Lisbon and its metropolitan area was a very simple thing. So generally, amenities that influence land value, as you know, are usually infrastructure, accessibility, and a wide variety of service, or they're usually located in central, well-known areas. But as prices rose, so the demand for lower value neighborhoods and outskirts started to grow. And suddenly, empty stores gave place to cool coffee shops and restaurants, and the previous low location became, trendy spots. So I would say it's the classic ripple effect.
So just to sum up this slide, we can see that all prices have been rising in Portugal, but Lisbon city centre has always been a lot more expensive than Portugal in general, as you would expect, but also the Lisbon metropolitan area, the Greater Lisbon area. But as we know, there are some very chic neighbourhoods in central Lisbon, and there are some not very less popular areas on the outskirts of Lisbon, just like every other large city in Western Europe. So now I'm going to ask you to move on to slide 5. Now, slide 5 shows residential property prices per square metre in the Lisbon metropolitan area. So for our viewers, I should explain that the larger Lisbon area is divided into not quite counties, but basically very big parishes, should we say. So what Zé has done is taken the price per square metre for properties in those areas. So of course, some like Lisbon, which is the top, which is the heart of the city, is much more expensive per square metre than somewhere like Moita, right at the bottom, which is a Lisbon city district south of Lisbon on the other side of the Tagus. So tell us a little bit about this, Zé.
Okay, so to understand this data, or to try to, or starting, you should know mainland Portugal is administratively divided into 18 districts, and there is a Lisbon district, and then districts are divided into councils or municipalities, and these councils are divided into parish. With this being said, what you can see on the following two slides, on these two slides, so the first table is, like you said, is the evolution of residential property prices per square meter in Lisbon metropolitan area by quarter and by municipality. For instance, this table displays the evolution of Lisbon, Cascais, Oeiras, Sintra, as well as the other 14 counties of the region that you could see in the previous map. And the second table, it's the evolution of residential property prices per square meters in Lisbon city center by parish, meaning each one of the 24 parish of central Lisbon. This is particularly useful if you're looking for properties in Lisbon to provide a perception of supply and its prices for each area. Because when you use a real estate website, no matter if it's Idealista or Remax or whatever, the searches are performed by council, and then if the information is provided by parish. So this is a good way to test, and to have a perception of what properties exist.
Yes, I can see. So on that basis, we can see, well, I mean, our readers, our users, our listeners can look at this in more detail later, but if we go on to the next question for you, Zay, is why Portugal and why the Lisbon metropolitan area then?
Well, besides the property market, because mostly this is connected with our lives, I think I can name some good reasons. Well, the country, it's political and socially stable. This is a very important thing. Safety is another important reason. Portugal is ranked as the third safest country in the World Global Peace Index, right after Iceland and New Zealand. We've got good infrastructures, namely in the Lisbon region, obviously, high quality telecommunication systems, highway and train networks, and airports all over the country. At least, the biggest one are in Lisbon, Porto, and in the Algarve in Faro. Got well-reputed international schools. Private healthcare in Portugal is high quality and affordable. And if you become a resident, public health is free. And as you probably know, Portugal offers an affordable cost of living and also a healthy living. You might not know, but for instance, Portuguese are one of the biggest fish eaters per capita in the world. And pollution is low, and both streets and beaches are usually clean and litter-free. And not to forget this, very important. There is no other Southern European country where English is spoken so widely. Portugal ranks 7th in the English Proficiency Index, right after, let me name it, the Netherlands, the 4 Nordic countries, so Denmark, Finland, Sweden, and Norway, and Austria. And I think this is quite appealing for most of foreigners in general, but mostly for British, for English speakers. And well, we've got year-round sunshine and beautiful beaches. You might not know, but Lisbon is considered the sunniest capital of mainland Europe. Apparently, Malta's capital, La Valletta, managed to offer a few more hours of sun per year than Lisbon. I'm not happy with that.
No, I'm sure that's not right, José. I have to say, one of the reasons why all Portuguese speak 2 or 3 languages, one of them is that you grow up watching Portuguese TV or English and American programs in the original language. So you just watch Portuguese subtitles, apart from the fact that the schools are so good at teaching foreign languages. Right, okay. So there's no question that everybody watching here today, we have dozens of participants watching, they're keen on Portugal, they're keen on the Lisbon area. Now, assuming they want to buy, and we'll come to the questions from the audience. We've got some very good questions coming up. Neil Stanley, Ronan Fox, Michael Hampton, etc. We'll come to you shortly. We're just finishing one more slide and then we'll come to the questions. Take us to slide 7, José. These are the costs associated with actually buying or renting a house, i.e. buying a house and how much tax you'll pay on top. And also if you buy a house for rental investment, Zay, you're going to tell us a little bit about that and what the taxes are, aren't you?
Of course. So when we buy a property, and when I say we, because that is regardless of the buyer being Portuguese or British, and unless we buy a property for up to 92,000 euros and we make it our primary residence, this is the exception, we have to pay property purchase tax at a rate that varies between 1 and 8%. But in the vast majority of cases, there is a significant deduction that settles a maximum of 6%. In addition, and that's what the slide speaks about. In addition, we also pay a flat stamp duty tax of 0.8%, meaning you can estimate a maximum taxation of 6.8%. But that table was to provide a perception to those who are keen in buying a property.
So a good rule of thumb would be whatever you're going to spend on a property, add around another 6% on top to cover the government taxes you have to pay on the value of the property plus stamp duty plus etc.
6.8%.
6.8 is about right. Tell us, say, if you buy a house and then rent it out, what sort of taxes will you have to pay on that rental income?
Well, if you end up renting a house, that will imply including the property income in your tax return statement, and taxation will go up to 28% of the rent's value, depending of the duration of the contract. If you start with 1-year contract, it will be 28%. If you start with a 2-year, it will be 26. If you start with 5-year, it will be 23. And then if you renovate, it gets better.
Mm. Okay, you mean you pay less tax, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Now, a lot of our viewers are very savvy and know that about the golden visa options, which are coming to an end for the Lisbon area and the other coastal areas at the end of this year. So we've just put up the slide about the low density municipalities and parishes. Now, this is the reason we've put this slide up, dear viewers, is that by the end of this year, the Portuguese authorities are withdrawing the option of buying a property under the golden visa rules in these white areas, i.e. the key coastal areas along the Algarve and in the Lisbon region. So Zé, talk to us a little bit about this map and what it means for the golden visa investors and why when the golden visa is ending and what people should do if they want to try and buy a property and qualify for golden visa in one of these white areas.
Okay, so this map shows where low density areas are located in Portugal. And this is important, or just became important, because regarding the residence permit for investment, which is the golden visa official name, from 1st January 2022, it will not be possible to apply for golden visa through purchasing a house located outside a low density area. This is why the map is important. So
just to confirm, the blue area is a low density area.
Exactly, yep. the blue and red. So
blue and red.
The government is trying to direct foreign investment into the country's inland areas. Meaning, if you want to apply for a golden visa through buying a residential property in Lisbon metropolitan area, you have literally 6 months to make it happen. So because from January, this scheme will only be eligible for residential real estate investments in the Azores and Madeira and in inland regions, the blue and red. So that's why this map is so important, because it helps us to understand the geographical areas in white, which no longer qualify for residential investment under the golden visa scheme, as well as though they will remain available for this purpose. Like you said, the low density areas, there are the blue and red.
So the interesting thing is to look at the red areas because they are on the fringes of the popular white areas, but particularly the red areas in the Algarve are the interior areas of the coastal region. And I have a feeling that you'll see significant development which qualifies under the golden visa in those areas.
In particular.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So we're going to start taking some questions. Now, slide 9. This is just to whet your appetite, dear viewers. These are some of the properties that José has for sale, but he'll explain in a moment. Zé, now tell us a little bit. Let's just imagine we are buying ourselves a place in Lisbon, and I know we've just shown a couple of properties, just examples of what's available, but I mean there's thousands and thousands of different properties that you have access to. So let's say someone does want to buy a property, but they're not quite sure where to start, or they're on very limited time schedules. Plus, we have the small complication of a worldwide pandemic and various restrictions on arriving in Portugal at the moment, as my British friends will know. There are some recent quarantine regulations before you can get into Portugal. So tell us how we can start to make this happen. How do you start to buy a property in Portugal?
Okay. Thank you, Christina. So I believe we all agree that buying a property is by definition both an opportunity and a risk. With that being said, my mantra is the following: let's mitigate risk. So first, find a local agent that you find reliable. In my opinion, there's just one thing that is as important as professionalism, and that is trust. And by trust, I mean a very simple question. Do you really believe what this person is saying? So obviously, if you're buying a property abroad, the trust subject is even more important because you'll need an accurate and honest perception about almost everything. It's not just the property features or the price or what the location has to offer or a forecast on what the location will offer in the near future, or if there will probably be licensing issues regarding renovation. But you can just start directly contacting property listings, but what you have to know is that you'll end up being represented by the same person that was hired to promote the property and to represent the seller's best interest. So in other words, you can decide who represent your interest in while you search, select, negotiate, and formalize the purchase of your new property, which is the same as saying someone that might have a huge effect on saving you from misfortunes, concerns, and save you some £1,000 as well. Or let fate choose this person for you. So you'll need, in my opinion, you'll need someone who is generally focused on providing added value. And that is being able to understand where and how your life concept for Portugal can take shape in the form of a property. And someone who is focused on closing the deal with your favorite property, but also prepared to draw your attention to anything that might make you hesitate. So you can appoint a specialist buying agent who will take, will make a brief from your specs and after compile a list of properties from all the different brokerage companies and to do this journey along with you. But well, the good news is that, let me tell you this, Christina, is that for the ones that are considering purchasing a property in Portugal, is that commissions, real estate brokerage commissions, are paid by the seller of the property. Meaning, if you choose a specialist buying agent, he will probably ask you just to pay a 500 or 1,000 deposits that he will wire you back after closing the deal, which in my opinion is usually a good indicator of how he or she is aware of the value that he or she is capable of providing. Okay. And they want to make sure they're investing their time in people that are focused and purchasing the property.
So just to summarize, anybody looking at buying a property in Portugal can do the traditional route. They can go to the big websites, they can see the properties they like, they can ring up those agents, go and have a look at them, bearing in mind that the agent is representing the seller and they will get 5% commission from the seller. The other way you can do it in Portugal is a concept that the British are quite familiar with, which is appoint a specialist buying agent, someone like yourself. There are others around as well, but we happen to be talking to you, a specialist buying agent who will take a brief from the British customer, a lifestyle brief, what you want, etc., and then plus your budget, and then he'll go out and compile a list of all the properties that suit the brief from all sorts of agents, all across a wide range of agents, so not just one agent. And more importantly, the buying agent is on the buyer's side, as in will be ruthless about what might go wrong, what there's a road being built, it's overpriced, whatever it might be, because his interest is in serving the buyer and making sure that the buyer makes a good investment. Okay, so it's a similar concept to the UK. Okay, so just before we start taking questions, just explain how the buying agent gets paid then.
That is a good point, Christina. So the commission charge on the property sales is usually shared equally between the agent or brokerage company that is promoting the property and the agent or brokerage company that comes up with the buyer. So eventually, when you close the deal, your agent or the brokerage firm he works with gets off of the commission of the deal.
Okay, so basically the 5% commission paid on the sale of the property is paid by the seller to whoever manages to sell the property for you. So anybody hiring a buying agent only has to pay the buying agent a small advance or an advance to cover their time and effort, and they'll get that commission, the advance back when the property transaction is finished. Okay, right. We've also covered the fact that you do take a very specialized brief from people, which I think makes a lot of sense because this is a lifestyle choice or an investment choice. I mean, somebody could come to you saying they want to make an investment. So tell us just very quickly, if you get a phone call or email saying, I'm looking for a 3-bedroom apartment in Wales, what do you tell people?
I'll tell, when can we schedule a video meeting? Because look, if you expect good results, please focus on providing good inputs. So what is a big living room for me might be a tiny division for you. What means close to a subway station, 100 meters away, 10 minutes walking. So you know that movie, that lovely film with Jack Nicholson and Alan Hunt, and as good as it gets. And there's a quote that says, you make me want to be a better man. So there are some buyers that allow me to be a better agent because they are able to provide important information that allows me to understand their ideas and expectations better. And what I'm trying to say here is that after choosing a reliable person, you should share information. You should provide accurate information to the person you're relying on, since this person will help you find, price and purchase your new property. That is why choosing a good professional and trustful person is so important.
Okay. All right, Zaid. Now, we're going to take some questions from the audience. So if we go to slide 11, please. Right. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, just so you're clear, Zaid is very happy to talk to any of you after this meeting. You can email him or ring him or have a personal chat with him about what your questions are. We're just going to take a couple of questions from our audience. We've got a good question here from Ravi Prolo. Thank you, Ravi. Ravi asks us, Zaid, could you please share some ideas about the Greater Lisbon area and what type of accommodation are available for investment, i.e. Buying a property to rent out or a property that might quickly appreciate in value?
Okay. Well, in the last years, that was something that was very obvious. When I mentioned that there were two things, the Portuguese starting to buy again after the bailout, and also foreigners. And one thing that contributed for a lot of urban rehabilitation was precisely the fact that there was a huge touristic opportunity. So there were many rentals, many acquisitions of properties that then were used for local accommodation, and the yields were very interesting. Obviously, we're having this conversation in a very particular context, in a very particular momentum. And but I can tell you that yesterday, Eurostat just released for the first time some proper data on this was released literally yesterday on local accommodation, and Lisbon was ranking 4th, I believe. So I believe things might change. But so that was the first part of the question, I believe, and the second part was about a forecast and a positive perspective on the price evolution. Well, that is why people need to speak with local specialists. I can give you a very interesting example. Marvilla, that is being named for everyone because I can tell you that Marvilla, the prices changed, like in 1 year the prices rose about 85%. So this creates a perception that, well, land value rose 85%. No, it didn't. But what happened is that there are some new developments, there are huge expectation on that area, and so suddenly an area where there was just a few transactions, low value transactions, starting to register huge transactions from a luxury development, and obviously that makes a huge impact on the average and on the median values. So if Marvilla rose by 85%, for sure, not, but obviously
some properties in Marvilla did. So they affected the average.
It will affect because now people just buying those properties, but maybe in 2 years people are starting to living there, and when a significant portion of people are living in these new developments, that has an impact because services are going to create it to serve these people, so to match these people expectation, and so this is a dynamic. That's what I was saying in the beginning. The housing connects with economic, with social dynamics, and that it was interesting. Obviously, for a better answer, I'll need more time to give more examples of what might be interesting in terms of.
We have a question from Michael, José. What is the typical size of a 3-bed house in square meters in Lisbon?
Okay, I would say that there are very few properties below 100 square meters, 3-bedroom properties in Lisbon below 100 square meters. But I would say probably it depends if it's an old property or a new, but usually if we're talking about a 3 bedrooms property, probably 110, 120 square meters.
And it would probably be unlikely to be a house, Michael, actually. It's more likely to be an apartment, isn't it? Because this British concept of 3-bedroom houses on one...
Houses, sorry.
No, I mean, house, we use the term loosely, but I think, Michael, it's more likely to be an apartment. Because Lisbon, as you know, is built on hills. Although, to be fair, on the south bank of the river and in the outlying areas of the Greater Lisbon area, there are lots of houses. It's just the city centre is very hilly and mostly apartments.
It's true. If you're looking for a 3-bedroom apartment in Chiado, the gross private area average might be lower than the one that you might find in Telheiras or in Almada.
Yeah. Okay. We've got a question from Neil Stanley. Thank you, Neil. Since Lisbon property purchases are no longer going to qualify for the golden visa, which we know because we were looking at our slide with blue and white and red, do you think that will have a negative impact on prices in the Lisbon area? That's a very good question, actually, and I was wondering the same thing.
It is. I don't think that it will be significant because I don't believe that the impact was significant before. With this being said, this is very important. What might have happened, and I believe usually the real estate sector says no, but I think it did. So the golden visa scheme was released in 2012, but 2012 were like 2 transactions, something like that. But by 2014, when there were a lot of when the demand for golden visa started to grow, there was some lack of transparency. A big portion of these buyers were Chinese, and what I believe that happened, that is something that doesn't make me proud, is that some of these people have bought properties for half thousand, for 500,000 euros. That probably
were overpriced.
Yeah, I think so. And what I feel, and I mentioned this when I mentioned that I think I said something like the Visit Portugal slogan gave place to moving to Portugal and living to Portugal. So I think this is much more than just the investment. People live here. And let me tell you just a short thing. 20 years ago, when I was a university student, I used to backpack all around Europe. And I remember so well that people not European, but from other continents, some of them they assumed that Portugal was part of Spain, or that my birth language was my mother language was Spanish. So, and what I can say is that the perception about Portugal, the media, so Portugal, it's on people's minds, and this has a huge value. And this is not me being romantic. It's very easy to see that when we had the World Exhibition in '98, then the Euro 2024. It's a good subject for you guys.
Yay!
Yesterday.
Let's wait for Sunday.
And wish you luck. And all these things, and even the Portuguese. And if people go to house in Lisbon, I've got a text that it's about Cristiano Ronaldo having an impact on property value. I feel that there were a lot of people, obviously Cristiano Ronaldo, it's just the one that.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to just cut you off here because we've got 3 or 4 more questions. Sorry. Karim, thank you for the question. I'm just conscious that we don't want to lose our valuable participants. So we've got time for a couple more questions. So Karim, thank you for your question, which I'm going to answer. So Karim's question is, apart from the golden visa property route, is there an investment route for the golden visa into Portugal? Now, Karim, I'll answer this briefly. Yes, there is. Send us an email here at the Chamber, info@portuguese-chamber.org.uk. The reason I ask you that is that you can, of course, just buy a property for 500,000 and qualify under the golden visa. But there are, as Zay knows, there are other property funds regulated by Portugal's financial regulator, which allow you to invest 350,000 euros into the fund, and you also qualify for your golden visa. These funds will invest in real estate, but they're also investing in other blue chip investments. We should also say, and Zay can elaborate if you want to talk to him later, that you don't have to spend 500,000 euros on a property to qualify for a golden visa. I think it's 350,000 euros for a property that needs renovation, doesn't it?
Exactly,
isn't it, Zay?
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the total amount between the property purchase and the renovation itself.
Yes. Okay. Right, we've got another question from Rob. Rob, this is a bit off topic, so you may have to ask us in detail later, but you're saying since Brexit, what are the rules now about moving to Portugal to live? Right, the short answer, Rob, is that Portugal, well, the UK is no longer in Europe, therefore by Portuguese standards, the UK is a third country, i.e. outside the European Union, so we are the same as Russia, the US, anywhere else, in China, any other country you care to comment on. So therefore the Portuguese will now say, if you want to move to Portugal, no problem, you're very welcome. But if you want to come and live permanently in Portugal, you apply for a visa, normally under the D7 regime, which you can find out more about, or alternatively, if you want to not spend all your year in Portugal, you can buy your way in to citizenship, so to speak, where you can apply for a Portuguese golden visa. We can give you more details if you want on that. I'm just trying to access my questions and it won't let me, so let me just see why not. Okay, right. I think we've got time for one or two more questions. We have a question from oh, here we go. Right. We've got a question from Gonçalo Cardozo. Gonçalo is asking, what kind of properties and places in Portugal do you see British people focusing on more when they decide to buy and move to Portugal? So I think the answer to that is, so would you like to answer that one?
Well, there are some stereotypes about what British people are looking for in Portugal. I can name one that is very obvious, that is related with golf. I think I mentioned before, you know, there's this idea of someone that wants to live surrounded by green or in front of the sea, but in any moment near from a golf green. But and that is a very obvious example. But not every single British people are looking for a golf to play golf. So I would say that are some different profiles, some more, well, I think when I mentioned Sintra, Oeiras, Cascais, and Lisbon, I was starting to profile potential buyers, British buyers, because these are the places where they focus. And I would say that and in Lisbon, they're more looking for an apartment. In Sintra or Cascais, they might be wondering about a detached house or a semi-detached house. So this is, I think this is the main idea, the main general idea about
okay.
the subject.
All right then. Well, I think that we are coming to the end of the webinar now. I would like to just return to the fact that the webinar will now be available and the stats will be available on movingtoportugal.org.uk. And we'd also like to just remind people, having taken most of the questions from the audience, we'd just like to remind people that we've got the next live Moving to Portugal event in London in October, a certain small virus permitting. So we're going to keep you up to date with that. And any questions you have, please feel free to email or contact José directly. We'll put his details up one last time. Perhaps, Namrata, you could put the slide up with the details just one last time. And it just remains for me to thank everybody for being present. And I hope that you found them useful. We're doing other webinars in this same series over the coming weeks. So make sure you register with us at movingtoportugal.org.uk. Keep an eye open for our next live event, the Moving to Portugal shows and seminars, which will be in London in October. And we are looking forward to seeing you all very soon. Thank you very much.